Rain hammered the city like shattered glass, turning every streetlight into a blur of gold and silver. Aria pressed her hands deeper into her worn jacket pockets, her sneakers slapping puddles as she hurried down Ashmere Avenue. It was almost midnight. The cafe had closed hours ago, but the manager made her stay to clean. Her paycheck barely covered rent, and her little brother was waiting at home, coughing again. The air smelled of exhaust, wet concrete, and something metallic. Blood. She slowed, heart thudding, when she saw it. A black SUV crashed half sideways against a lamppost, steam rising from the hood. A man lay sprawled beside it, motionless, half his shirt soaked crimson. For a second, she froze. Every instinct screamed, but something, some quiet pull she couldn't explain, dragged her forward. She knelt beside him. His skin was burning hot despite the rain. "Sir, can you hear me?" she whispered. No response. She pressed her scarf against his wound, trembling. "Please, don't die." His lashes fluttered, revealing eyes that glowed faintly, like molten golds catching moonlight. The glow was gone before she could be sure she'd seen it. The man's breath came shallow and ragged, his lips pale. He looked otherworldly. Sharp jawline, black hair plastered to his forehead, suit torn and soaked. Not someone who belonged in alleys like this. She scanned his pockets for a phone and found nothing but a silver ring engraved with strange symbols. "Help!" she shouted down the street, but the storm swallowed her voice. She tore a piece of her skirt to bind his side tighter, strings stinging her skin. He groaned, a deep guttural sound that made her chest tighten. His hand shot up, grabbing her wrist. She gasped, looking into those golden eyes again, brighter this time, almost feral. "Don't leave," he rasped, voice low, animal-like. Then he collapsed again, unconscious. Aria sat frozen, her pulse racing. Headlights sliced through the rain, a convoy of black cars screeched to a halt. Men in suits poured out, surrounding her. "Miss, step away from him," one barked. She stumbled back, clutching her scarf. "Who are you?" "We'll take it from here," another said, lifting the man onto a stretcher. Aria backed away, rain drenching her hair, the scarf still clutched tight in her hands. "Wait, he needs a hospital," she shouted. The tallest man looked at her sharply, then softened. "He'll get the best care in the city," he said, and nodded for the others to move. Before she could ask another question, they loaded him into one of the SUVs and sped away, tires screeching. Within seconds, the street was empty again. Only the wrecked lamppost, the smell of blood, and the echo of the man's strange eyes remained. Aria stood there, heart pounding. Who was he? Why did his man appear out of nowhere? And why did his voice, rough, pleading, sound like a command her body couldn't disobey? She looked down at her scarf. It was soaked in his blood, faintly warm, and for a heartbeat, it seemed to pulse in rhythm with hers. She swallowed, shook her head, and ran home. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the cracks in their small apartment window. Her brother Finn sat on the couch, wrapped in blankets, his dark curls messy. "You're late again," he murmured, coughing. "You didn't eat." She smiled weakly, handing him a piece of bread. "Work ran long." But her thoughts weren't on work. They were on last night, on golden eyes, on that impossible heat beneath her hands. She turned on the small TV to distract herself. A breaking news banner flashed across the screen. Alpha CEO Kieran Vale survives assassination attempt. The world tilted. She dropped her cup, coffee splattering the floor. The photo that appeared on screen stole her breath. It was him, the man from the street, the same jawline, same hair, same cold fire in his eyes. Only now he wore an expression of command, not pain. They said he's the most powerful CEO in the city, owner of Vale Industries. known for his ruthless leadership and his mysterious private life. Aria's pulse quickened. She whispered, "Kieran Vale." Across the city, in a glass tower high above the skyline, Kieran sat shirtless in a dim office, a fresh bandage over his ribs. His assistant, Lucien, stood near the window. "We traced her. She disappeared before our men could get her name." Kieran's eyes glowed faintly gold beneath the low light. "Find her." Lucien hesitated. "She's human." Kieran's jaw flexed. "She touched me. She shouldn't have lived long enough to do that." He closed his hand into a fist. The memory of her scent, lavender and warmth through the storm, lingered in his mind like a song he couldn't silence. "But she did," he said quietly, "and now I can't breathe without it." Outside, thunder rolled again over the city, faint and far. The Alpha CEO of Vale Industries looked down at the crimson-stained scarf laid on his desk, the one she'd used to save his life, and his expression softened. "Whoever she is, she's mine now." Morning came quietly, but the city was already loud. Cars honked, vendors shouted. The world spun on, as if nothing extraordinary had happened the night before. Aria slipped through crowded streets toward the cafe, her scarf missing, her thoughts tangled. She kept replaying it, the blood, the crash, the glow in his eyes. Maybe it was just adrenaline. Maybe she was imagining things. But her heart wouldn't stop racing. Inside the cafe, the smell of burnt espresso filled the air. "You're late again," her boss snapped. "Customers don't serve themselves." She apologized, tying her apron quickly. The morning rush blurred by in orders and noise, until the bell above the door chimed, and silence followed. 3 men in suits entered. They didn't look like customers. Too quiet, too sharp. The tallest scanned the room and said smoothly, "We're looking for a young woman, late 20s, brown hair, kind eyes. She was seen near Ashmere Avenue last night." Aria froze, tray trembling in her hands. One of the men showed a photo of Kieran Vale. The headline read, "Alpha CEO's life saved by mystery woman." Her breath caught. The customers murmured in excitement. "Poor guy," someone said. "They say assassins tried to take him out." Aria's manager leaned forward eagerly. "You mean someone saved him? How romantic." The men smiled politely, but their eyes stayed cold. "If you know anything, contact us. Vale Industries will reward whoever helps locate her." They left as silently as they came, their scent lingering, something sharp and wild beneath the cologne. Aria sank against the counter, palms damp. "You okay?" her coworker asked. She nodded quickly. "Just dizzy." But inside, her heart thundered. She wanted to disappear. If they knew it was her, what would they do? She wasn't a hero. She was just a girl who made rent by pouring coffee and keeping her brother alive. Saving a man like that wasn't supposed to matter. But somehow, it did. Across the skyline, inside Vale Tower, Kieran stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, one hand on his chest where her scarf had pressed against his wound. His reflection stared back at him, cold, controlled, but restless. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face through the rain. "You're losing focus," Lucien said quietly, setting down a report. "The council's watching you. They think you're slipping." Kieran's gaze flicked toward him. "The council can wait. Find her." "She's human," Lucien reminded. "Humans panic. They talk." Kieran's tone hardened. "Then we protect her before someone else finds her first." He turned away, jaw tight. The wound on his ribs had already healed, leaving only a faint scar shaped like a crescent. His wolf stirred beneath his skin, restless, whispering one word again and again, "Mate." That night, rain returned, soft this time, steady like a lullaby. Aria walked home, the city lights reflecting off puddles. She pulled her jacket close, uneasy. Her apartment building loomed ahead, small, cracked, with the flickering hallway bulb. She climbed the stairs quietly. Finn was asleep on the couch, TV still playing a cartoon. She smiled, turned it off, and tucked a blanket around him. But when she looked out the window, something felt off. A shadow moved on the street below, a black SUV, same model as the one from that night. Her chest tightened. She stepped back from the glass, heart pounding. "It's just a coincidence," she whispered. "It has to be." She didn't see the figure standing in the rain outside her window, looking up at her, golden eyes glinting faintly through the storm. Inside the SUV, Kieran sat in silence, watching the faint light from her apartment flicker behind thin curtains. His fingers traced the fabric of her scarf resting in his lap, cleaned but still stained faintly red. Lucian shifted in the driver's seat. "You found her." Kieran's jaw flexed. "I never lost her." Lucian hesitated. "You shouldn't do this, Kieran. Humans can't." "She's not just human," Kieran interrupted softly. "She's the reason I'm still breathing." Outside, thunder murmured, low and distant. He reached for the door handle, then stopped. If he saw her now, he wouldn't be able to walk away. And she deserved a choice, something he'd never been given. "Keep her safe," he said finally. "No one touches her. Not the council, not my enemies." Lucian nodded. The SUV pulled away, its red taillights vanishing into the rain. Upstairs, Aria sat awake in bed, a strange warmth rising in her chest, as if someone, somewhere, had whispered her name. The Vale Industries boardroom gleamed like a cathedral of glass and money. Suits lined a long table, men and women with expensive watches and colder smiles. Kieran Vale sat at the head, black suit crisp, eyes unreadable. His presence commanded the room without a word. The city skyline stretched behind him, dawn light spilling across mirrored floors. "The merger with Blackthorn Corp is collapsing," said a director nervously. "They're threatening to pull funding unless you—" Kieran raised a hand, silencing him. "Let them pull," he said calmly. "We don't bend to wolves who hide behind contracts." A murmur rippled through the room. Everyone knew he wasn't just speaking metaphorically. He was the alpha in both worlds, corporate and supernatural. A predator in a tailored suit. When the meeting adjourned, Kieran lingered by the window, fingers resting on the blood-stained scarf folded in his pocket. He hadn't told anyone about the girl who'd saved him, not even the council. Some things were too human to explain. Lucian entered quietly, closing the glass doors behind him. "The council wants an audience," he said. "They're concerned about your instincts." Kieran's reflection in the glass didn't flinch. "They're concerned I'm not under their control." Lucian sighed. "They'll push harder if you keep acting alone. They already sent scouts near Ashmere Avenue. She won't stay hidden forever." Kieran turned sharply. "Did they find her?" "No," Lucian replied, "but they will if you keep protecting her." The silence between them thickened. Kieran's jaw tightened. "I owe her my life. That makes her my responsibility." Lucian hesitated, then said quietly, "Or your weakness." Kieran's golden eyes flickered in the reflection, wolf glinting beneath. "Say that again," he murmured. Lucian dropped his gaze. "You know what I mean. If they think she's your mate, they'll use her against you." Kieran's breath came slow, controlled. "Then we'll make sure they never find out." Across the city, Aria's morning started with burnt toast and a knock at the door. "Who is it?" she called. A voice answered, but polite but unfamiliar. "The livery for Miss Aria Rowan." She frowned. She hadn't ordered anything. When she opened the door, a man in a dark suit stood holding a small black box. "From Mr. Vale," he said, bowing slightly. Her blood ran cold. "I think you've got the wrong person." "No mistake," he replied. He asked me to tell you, thank you for saving his life. Then he left, disappearing down the hall before she could ask anything else. Inside the box was a key card, a phone, and a note written in silver ink. 4 emergencies. K. Aria stared at it, her heart hammering. How did he know her name, her address? Her fingers trembled as she closed the box. Whatever world he came from, it wasn't hers, and she didn't belong in it. That evening, Kieran attended a charity gala at the Crescent Tower. Cameras flashed as he stepped onto the red carpet, his expression perfectly composed. "Mr. Vale, over here," shouted reporters. "How are you recovering after the attack?" "Fortunate," he said smoothly, "thanks to the kindness of a stranger." Behind the practiced calm, his senses were alert. He could smell the council wolves watching from across the ballroom. Serene, his former fiancée, and Alpha, the Blackthorn pack, approached with a glass of champagne. "Still pretending to care about humans, Kieran? It doesn't suit you." His jaw twitched. "Neither did you." She smiled thinly. "You're slipping. Rumors say you're protecting someone weak, someone human." He leaned closer, his voice low and dangerous. "Rumors get people killed. Remember that." Her smirk faltered as his eyes flashed gold for just a heartbeat. After the gala, Kieran retreated to his penthouse. The night sky stretched wide, a sea of black glass. He removed his tie, exhaustion heavy in his bones. He wasn't used to feeling anything, especially not this constant ache in his chest. The wolf inside him stirred restlessly. He poured a drink, stared at the city lights, and whispered to the empty room. "Where are you?" Miles away, Aria sat on her apartment balcony. The phone from the box glowed faintly on the table. She couldn't stop looking at it. The wind picked up, brushing her hair across her face. For a split second, she swore she saw golden eyes flicker in the reflection of the window, watching, waiting, protecting. Across the city, Kieran closed his eyes, his senses reaching out beyond the skyline. He didn't need her to call. He could already feel her heartbeat. Soft, steady, alive. "Sleep safely, little one. The wolves are still hunting." Aria didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the building felt like a threat. Every car that passed below made her heart skip. The phone Kieran sent lay untouched on the table, glowing faintly as if waiting. She told herself not to touch it, not to get involved, not to step deeper into a life that wasn't hers. But the memory of those golden eyes kept her awake. By morning, Finn's medicine was almost gone, and rent was overdue again. She pushed the thought of Kieran Vale out of her mind and went to work, clutching her last few dollars in her pocket. The cafe was quieter than usual, the kind of quiet that makes you uneasy. When the doorbell chimed, Aria glanced up, and her stomach dropped. A man in a brown leather jacket entered, his smile too casual, his eyes too cold. "Aria Rowan?" he asked, flipping through a folder. "You're 3 weeks behind on your landlord's payment. He's decided to speed things up." Aria froze. I just need time," she stammered. The man leaned closer, his voice dripping with amusement. "Time's expensive, and from what I hear, you're not very rich." He tapped the folder lightly. "He says you can pay in cash or favors." The meaning in his tone made her skin crawl. The customers in the cafe looked away, pretending not to notice. Aria's throat tightened. "Please, I'll have something next week." He chuckled darkly. "You said that last week." Then his voice dropped lower just for her. "You shouldn't have ignored his calls." He turned to leave, pausing at the door. "You've got 2 days, sweetheart. After that, maybe your brother can work off the debt instead." The sound of the door chime closing behind him felt like a slap. Aria's legs went weak. The manager said nothing. No one did. The world kept spinning, indifferent. But inside her, something finally broke. She left work early, walking home through the narrow back streets of the city, rain beginning to fall again. Her hands trembled. She'd faced poverty before, hunger before, but not threats like that. Not ones that involved Finn. She reached her building, fumbling for her keys, when a low growl froze her in place. It wasn't human. She turned slowly. The man from earlier stood at the end of the alley, smiling, but this time his teeth looked wrong, too sharp. "You really shouldn't have said no," he said, his voice warping. His eyes gleamed silver. Aria stumbled backward as his body twisted, bones cracking, claws extending. Her scream caught in her throat. A wolf, half man, half monster, lunged toward her. But before he could strike, something blurred through the rain, a black shadow faster than sound. The creature slammed into the wall with a sickening crack. Kieran stood where it had been, his suit soaked, his eyes glowing pure gold. "Mine," he growled, voice deep enough to shake the ground. The wolf staggered up, snarling, but one look from Kieran made it whimper. "You dare touch what's under my protection?" The wolf spat blood. "She's human. She doesn't belong to your kind." Kieran's jaw flexed. "She does now." He moved faster than sight, claws flashing once. The creature crumpled to the ground, still. Aria pressed against the wall, shaking, her breath shallow. Kieran turned toward her slowly, his eyes dimming back to human, his face unreadable. "Are you hurt?" he asked softly. She shook her head, though tears streaked her face. "What was that?" "A debt collector," he said dryly. "The wrong kind." Rain fell harder, washing blood into the gutter. Kieran stepped closer, his voice lower, calmer. "You're not safe here anymore." "You shouldn't be here," Aria whispered. "You're supposed to be—" "Recovering?" He gave a faint smile. "I heal fast." His gaze softened as he studied her trembling hands. "You shouldn't have had to face that alone." She looked up at him, eyes glistening. "You can't just show up every time something bad happens." "I don't plan to," he said quietly. "But if something happens to you, I'll feel it. That's what you did when you saved me. You tied us together." "Tied?" she echoed. "What does that mean?" He didn't answer. He only reached into his pocket, holding out a small silver token engraved with a wolf's head. "Keep this with you. If danger comes again, I'll know." Aria hesitated, then took it, her fingers brushing his. For a second, the world seemed to still. The rain, the fear, the city, all faded. There was only his warmth and her racing heartbeat. He stepped back, eyes dark. "Stay hidden, Aria. They've started hunting." Then he was gone, vanishing into the storm like a shadow that belonged to the night itself. Aria didn't know how long she stood in the alley after Kieran vanished. The rain felt colder now, and the world quieter, like even the city held its breath. She looked down at the small silver token in her palm. The wolf's head engraved on it seemed to pulse faintly, almost alive. Her reflection stared back in the puddle, pale, wide-eyed, lost. She slipped the token into her pocket and hurried home. Finn was awake when she arrived, his face pale but smiling. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said. "Maybe I did," she whispered. She made him dinner, checked his medicine, and tried to act normal. But her hands still shook. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Kieran standing there, eyes glowing gold, the rain bending around him like it feared to touch him. He'd killed a man. Or a monster. She wasn't even sure which, but she couldn't forget the way he'd looked at her afterward. Not like a CEO, not like a savior. Like a wolf trying to remember what gentleness felt like. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the window, but Aria couldn't shake the unease. She left Finn at home and walked to work early, her thoughts tangled. When she reached the cafe, something strange happened. Every sound, the hiss of coffee machines, the chatter, the clink of cups, seemed distant. Her head buzzed, like someone whispering her name just beyond hearing. She dropped a tray, glass shattering across the floor. The moment it hit, pain shot through her palm. She hissed, clutching her hand. But when she looked, there was no blood, just a faint silver line glowing across her skin, forming the same symbol as Kieran's token. The glow faded quickly, leaving her breathless. "Aria?" her coworker called. "You okay?" She nodded weakly, hiding her hand in her apron. But her heart pounded. She could feel something inside her, something wild, stirring. Across the city in his penthouse, Kieran jerked awake at his desk. His hand shot to his chest. The same silver heat burned under his skin. He didn't need to check to know what it meant. The bond had responded. She was marked. Lucien burst in. "What happened?" "She's been touched by it," Kieran said quietly. The bonds awakened. Lucien paled. "That's not possible. She's human." Kieran stood, the wolf inside him pacing. Not anymore. He walked to the window, eyes glowing faintly. "The council will sense it soon. They'll come for her before she understands what she's become." "Then hide her," Lucien urged. Kieran's gaze hardened. "No, I'll protect her in the open. If they want her, they'll have to go through me." His reflection glared back. A man, a beast, and something caught in between. For the first time in years, the Alpha CEO felt fear. Not for himself, but for the girl who'd unknowingly bound her heart to his. That evening, Aria was closing the cafe when she noticed a sleek black car parked outside. Her chest tightened. "Not again," she muttered. She turned off the lights and stepped out. But this time, the car door opened and Kieran stepped out. He wasn't in a suit tonight. Just black jeans, rolled sleeves, and that impossible stillness that made the world bend around him. He said, "We need to talk." She crossed her arms. "You have a habit of showing up after something terrifying happens." His lips twitched. "Then stop getting into danger." She frowned. "Is that supposed to be a joke?" "No," he said simply. His eyes dropped to her hand. "Show me." "Show you what?" "The mark." She froze. "How do you—" "Because I felt it." His tone softened. "You're connected to me now, Aria. When you're hurt, I feel it. When you're afraid, I hear it. When you bleed, I burn." The words made her breath hitch. "Why me?" she whispered. He looked at her with something close to reverence. "Because you saved me, and the bond never forgets its savior." She stared at him, heart pounding. "So what happens now?" she asked. His gaze darkened. "Now you learn what it means to carry an alpha's mark." He reached into his coat and pulled out her scarf, the same one soaked in his blood that night. "This started it. But the moment you touched me, something older woke up. The wolf inside me recognized you." She shook her head. "No, that's impossible. I'm not—" "One of us?" His voice was quiet but sure. "No, you're something rarer. The bond chose you, not me." His hand brushed her wrist, and for a heartbeat, warmth flared between them, glowing faintly where their skin met. She gasped. "That's impossible," she whispered. "So is a human surviving an alpha's touch." He said, stepping closer. "But you did." He leaned in, his voice barely a breath. "You're stronger than you think, Aria. And that's exactly why they'll try to destroy you." The night wind howled outside as if echoing his words. Aria swallowed hard, meeting his eyes. "Then teach me to survive." Kieran's jaw tightened, but a faint smile curved his lips. "Careful what you ask for, little one. The lesson always starts with pain."
The car ride was silent. Aria sat beside Kieran, her fingers clutching the edge of her seat as the city lights blurred past. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "Somewhere safe," he replied without looking at her. "Safe from what?" His jaw tightened. "From what hunts me, and now you." The vehicle turned off the main road, gliding through a steel gate that opened into a secluded estate hidden behind trees. The mansion that rose before them was all glass and stone, glowing faintly under the moon. Inside, warmth replaced the cold. A grand fireplace crackled, and the air smelled faintly of cedar and something wilder. "This isn't safe," she murmured, staring at the guards posted outside the door. "It's a fortress." Kieran turned to her, eyes dark gold under the light. "Exactly." He motioned to the seat across from him. "Sit." She hesitated, but obeyed. He leaned forward. "Aria, what happened to your hand after the mark appeared?" "It burned," she whispered. "And then it stopped." "That's because your body's adapting, Hild. You're being rewritten by the bond." Aria blinked. "Rewritten?" The connection between an alpha and his savior isn't symbolic. It's biological, instinctual. My blood touched yours when you saved me. That's why you survived. He studied her, voice low. "And now, part of me lives in you." She shook her head, backing away. "No, I'm not whatever you are." Kieran rose slowly, his presence filling the room. "You think I wanted this?" he said, voice sharp. "You think I wanted to drag someone like you into my world?" His eyes flickered gold again, and his control slipped for just a heartbeat. The air shimmered, and his shadow stretched, long, wolf-like, across the wall. Aria froze, breath catching. "You're losing control," she whispered. "Then stop making me feel," he growled, turning away. Silence. Only the sound of the fire breathing in the distance. She stepped closer, her voice trembling. "You saved me last night. You didn't have to." Kieran glanced over his shoulder, something soft breaking through the anger. "Neither did you." Kieran motioned her toward a wooden door. "Come," he said. Beyond it was a training hall, wide, dimly lit, filled with the scent of wood and rain. If you're marked, you need to learn control. The mark doesn't just connect us, it calls to others. Wolves, alphas, hunters. He tossed her a small knife. She caught it awkwardly. "What am I supposed to do with this?" "Cut your palm," he said. "Let me show you." She hesitated. "That's insane." "Do it," he said, his tone pure command. The bond pulsed, and before she realized it, her hand moved on instinct. The blade sliced skin. Just a nick, but the moment her blood hit the air, the world changed. The scent of it filled the room, metallic, sweet, electric. Kieran's pupils dilated, the air thickened. "Stop breathing," she gasped. He turned away, trembling, every muscle in his body tensed. "You don't understand what that does to us," he said through gritted teeth. "That scent, it's calling every instinct I've buried." His hands clawed into the wall until it cracked. Then slowly, he exhaled, forcing control. "Lesson 1, he said hoarsely. "Your pain isn't weakness, it's power." He walked to her side, gently taking her cut hand. His touch was careful, reverent. "Lesson 2, he murmured. "Never show fear in front of a wolf." She tried to pull away, but his grip was firm, steady. Fear doesn't keep you alive. It attracts predators. His eyes met hers. Trust keeps you alive. He wrapped her palm in a strip of cloth, his fingers brushing hers. "And lesson 3? She asked softly. He looked up at her, voice lower than a whisper. "Don't ever forget who owns your mark." She stiffened. "I don't belong to anyone." He smirked faintly, but his tone carried a strange sadness. "Then make sure you don't make me prove otherwise." The words should have terrified her, but they didn't. Instead, they sank into her, like heat spreading through cold skin. The bond pulsed again, civil light flickering across her hand, across his wrist, connecting them for just a second. She jerked back, startled. "What was that?" The bond responded, he said quietly. "You're feeling what I feel." He stepped back, voice calmer now. "We'll start training tomorrow.
You'll learn to sense danger before it reaches you, to use the bond as a weapon if you must. Aria's pulse still raced. I didn't ask for this. No, Kieran replied, turning toward the window where rain streaked down the glass. Neither did I. Outside, thunder cracked, shaking the walls. He stood there, hands in his pockets, every inch the Alpha King in exile, power restrained, emotion buried. Aria watched him, realizing something she hadn't before. He wasn't cold because he didn't care. He was cold because caring had cost him too much. She touched the bandage on her hand, feeling the faint hum beneath her skin. The mark wasn't just changing her, it was awakening something that had always been there. Something fierce. Something unbreakable. Kieran turned his head slightly, sensing her gaze. Rest, Aria, he said quietly. Tomorrow, you'll see what it means to stand beside a wolf. And for the first time, she believed him. Not out of fear, but because the truth in his voice made the night feel alive.
The moon rose pale and full above the Vale estate, washing the world in silver. Aria sat by her window, unable to sleep. The mansion was quiet, too quiet, the kind of stillness that hums with things unsaid. Somewhere below, she could hear faint movement, the steady rhythm of Kieran's footsteps pacing the halls. Since the lesson, she hadn't seen him lose control again, but she could feel him nearby, like his presence existed inside her chest. She traced the faint mark on her palm, the place that had glowed under his touch, and whispered to herself, "What are you doing to me?" The wind brushed the curtains, carrying the scent of rain and pine. When a knock came at her door, she already knew who it was. "Come in," she said softly. Kieran entered, wearing a black shirt, sleeves rolled, his hair slightly damp as though he'd been standing in the storm. "You couldn't sleep either," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. He walked to the window, gazing out at the endless forest. "You can hear it, can't you? The woods, the wolves." Aria frowned, listening, and for a moment she thought she did hear it. Distant howls, low and mournful, echoing like lost songs through the trees. "It sounds lonely," she murmured. Kieran's lips curved faintly. It always does before the full moon. He turned to face her, and for the first time she saw something in his eyes that wasn't control. It was weariness. You think being alpha means power, but it really means silence, responsibility, blood on your hands, and no one to share it with. She studied him quietly. "You sound like someone who's tired of fighting." He met her gaze, something flickering behind the gold. "Maybe I am." The air between them tightened, charged. She should have looked away, but she didn't. "You don't have to be alone," she whispered. For a long moment, Kieran said nothing. Then he laughed, softly, bitterly. "You think it's that simple. You don't know what I am." He stepped closer, the light catching on his eyes. "I've killed to protect my people. I've lost everyone who's ever tried to love me. I am not a man you saved twice, Aria." Her heart thudded, but she didn't move. "You said the bond doesn't lie," she replied. "Then maybe it's not me trying to save you. Maybe it's the bond trying to save both of us." His breath hitched, barely audible. For a heartbeat, his control slipped, and she saw him, truly saw him, the man, the beast, the wounded alpha hiding behind iron and order. "You should stay away from me." "Then tell me to go," she said, voice trembling. Silence. The air grew heavy. Kieran looked away first. "I can't." He turned toward the window again,
the moonlight outlining the sharp planes of his face. "Do you know why the moon pulls on us?" he asked. "It reminds the wolf inside that we belong to something greater, something ancient. But for me," he exhaled, voice rough, "for me it's a curse. Every full moon I feel the pull of what I lost. My pack, my family, the woman I was promised to before she betrayed me for power." His tone hardened, but beneath it was grief. "You asked why I don't trust easily? That's why." Aria stepped closer, gently placing her hand on his arm. "I don't care what you were. I only care who you are now." He looked down at her, eyes softening despite himself. The bond between them pulsed faintly, glowing where her skin met his sleeve. He stared at it, then at her. "You're dangerous, Aria Rowan, because you make me want to believe again." The room seemed to shrink around them, the firelight painting shadows across the walls. Aria's voice was barely above a whisper. "What if I said I don't want to be afraid anymore?" Kieran's gaze flicked to her lips, then back to her eyes. "Then I'd tell you fear keeps you alive." "And what if I want more than that?" she asked. His restraint fractured just slightly. He reached out, fingertips brushing her jaw. "Then I'd tell you better be sure," he said quietly. "Because once I touch you like this," his thumb traced her cheek, slow and deliberate, "I don't let go." The bond flared, silver light pulsing between them. She felt it deep in her bones, a warmth that wasn't human, wasn't safe, but was real. She leaned in, her breath catching. "Then don't." His control broke. His lips met hers, soft, trembling, desperate. It wasn't the kiss of a man in love, it was the kiss of a king finally surrendering to what he denied for too long. When they parted, the moon had climbed higher, brighter, like it was watching. Kieran's voice was rough, low. "You shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "Why?" "Because now I'll burn the world if anyone touches you." The morning after the kiss, the mansion felt different. The air, once quiet and heavy, now hummed with an unspoken tension. Aria woke early, her lips still tingling from the night before. She touched her mark. It pulsed faintly, responding to the memory. "What have I done?" she whispered to her reflection. Downstairs, the staff moved silently, their eyes averted. News traveled fast in the Alpha's house, even when no one dared to speak. Kieran was already gone when she reached the dining hall, but his scent lingered. Cedar, rain, and something darker. On the table sat a single note in his sharp handwriting. "Stay inside today. Don't open the door for anyone." She frowned. Outside, sunlight painted the forest gold, calm and deceiving. "Safe," she muttered. He said this place was safe. But deep down, she already felt the truth. Something was coming. By noon, the quiet broke. Voices echoed near the gates, loud, commanding, not human. Aria peered through the window. A convoy of black cars lined the driveway, and men in suits stepped out, every one of them carrying the faint shimmer of gold in their eyes. Wolves. They moved like shadows, disciplined and dangerous. At the front stood a woman, tall, sharp-featured, her red dress cutting through the gray afternoon like blood. Aria didn't need to ask who she was. She recognized power when she saw it. Her voice carried easily through the air. "Where's Kieran?" she demanded. The guards hesitated. "He's not here, Lady Serene." The name struck like lightning. Serene, the alpha of Blackthorn Pack. Kieran's former betrothed. She smiled, cruel and cold. Then I'll wait. Her gaze swept the windows until it found Aria. Their eyes met for one breathless moment, and Aria's blood ran cold. Serene's smile widened. So the rumors were true. He found himself a new pet. Aria backed away from the window, heart hammering. She turned to run, but two guards appeared in the doorway. "Miss Rowan, please come with us." Kieran said not to open the door. "And we're not asking," one of them interrupted. Before she could protest, a familiar voice echoed from the hall. "Stand down." Lucian stepped forward, calm but tense. Lady Serene isn't to be provoked. She holds enough power to start a war. "Then what does she want with me?" Aria asked. Lucian hesitated. "She wants proof." "Of what?" "That you exist." Aria's stomach dropped. She knows. "They all know now," he said grimly. "The council, the packs. You're the human who carries the alpha mark. That makes you a threat." Aria swallowed hard. "So what happens now?" Lucian's expression softened for the first time. "Now, we pray Kieran gets here before she does something stupid." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance. Serene paced across the courtyard, her patience wearing thin. "Bring her out," she ordered. The guards didn't move. "I said, bring her out." The air shifted, then broke. The front gates burst open, the metal bending under unseen force. Wind howled through the trees, and every wolf turned toward the sound. A sleek black car screeched to a halt. Kieran stepped out, eyes blazing gold. Suit torn, or crackling with restrained fury. "You're trespassing," he said coldly. Serene's smirk faltered, but only slightly. "I came to see what you've been hiding." She flicked her gaze toward the mansion. "You've lost your mind, Kieran. Binding yourself to a human? That's not love, it's suicide." His voice dropped to a growl. "Say her name again." "Aria Rowan. Pretty, fragile, human." The next sound was a snarl, low, lethal, and not entirely human. The guards barely saw him move. 1 second Kieran stood beside his car. The next he was in front of Serene, claws half extended, eyes burning. "You forget yourself. You think the council will protect you from me? You think your rank means anything when you threaten what's mine?" Serene didn't flinch. "You'd risk the peace for a girl who doesn't even understand what she's done to you." "Peace was never real," Kieran growled. "It was a leash, and I just broke it." Lightning flashed, illuminating the forest behind them. For a heartbeat, Aria saw the true world she'd been pulled into, one built on dominance, fear, and loyalty bought with blood. Serene stepped back slowly, her confidence cracking. "You're making a mistake." "No," Kieran said, his voice like steel. "I'm making a choice." His gaze flicked toward the mansion window where Aria stood watching. "She's under my protection. Touch her again, and I'll show the council what happens when you corner an alpha." Serene's expression hardened. "Then may the moon judge you both." She turned, her wolves following her into the storm. As their taillights vanished, Kieran exhaled, his fury fading to exhaustion. He looked up once more at the window, and for the first time, Aria didn't see a king. She saw a man standing alone against the world.
The night after Serene's departure, the world refused to rest. Thunder rolled across the valley, carrying the scent of iron and smoke. Aria stood by the window, watching Kieran pace the courtyard below, his shirt torn, his posture tense. Every movement screamed control, barely held. She wanted to go to him, but something about the way the guards watched, the way the air trembled, told her danger was closer than he knew. Lucian appeared at her door, face grim. "Pack a bag," he said. "Now." Aria turned. "Why? What's happening?"
The council declared him unstable. They're sending hunters. The words hit like ice. Hunters? Lucian's eyes flicked toward the window. Silver bullets, wolfsbane rounds, the kind that don't miss. Aria's voice trembled. We have to warn him. He already knows, Lucian said quietly. He's not running. Kieran stood in the courtyard, rain soaking through his clothes, eyes fixed on the forest beyond. They're coming, he said as Lucian approached. 6 of them, maybe more. Lucian's voice was low. We can still move her. No. Kieran's tone was final. They'll follow. She's safest here, behind me. His golden eyes burned, faint lines of silver crawling beneath his skin. She carries my mark, Lucian. If they kill me, the bond will kill her too. Lucian's jaw tightened. Then we don't let them kill you. Kieran gave a humorless smile. We can't stop what's coming, but we can make them remember why they feared me. He turned toward the mansion doors. Keep her inside. Whatever happens, she doesn't see me like this. But even as he said it, the bond pulsed, alive, aware, and Aria felt his heartbeat pounding inside her own. She whispered into the rain, I can't let you face them alone. The first explosion shattered the night. Fire lit up the sky as silver bullets tore through the estate gates. Wolves shifted mid-run, some Vale guards falling before they could react. Aria ducked as the windows burst inward, glass flying. Aria! Lucian grabbed her arm. Downstairs, now! She pulled free, heart racing. He's out there! You can't help him, he shouted. He'll kill them before they reach him. But she didn't believe that, not with the scent of blood already burning in the air. She ran through the smoke-filled halls, her hand clutching the silver token Kieran had given her. When she burst into the courtyard, chaos reigned. Wolves colliding with men, claws against rifles, growls against thunder. And at the center of it, Kieran, half-shifted, his body flickering between man and beast, eyes blazing gold. A silver bullet grazed his shoulder, hissing smoke. He didn't flinch, but when another aimed straight for his heart, Aria screamed, Kieran! And the world exploded in light. She didn't know what happened, only that the bullet never reached him. It stopped mid-air, inches from his chest, shimmering with energy before dropping harmlessly to the ground. The air around her vibrated, alive. Kieran turned, eyes wide, seeing the silver glow pouring from her mark, wrapping her in light. Aria, he breathed. What did you do? I don't know, she gasped, her pulse racing with his. The light faded as fast as it came, leaving her trembling, her knees giving way. Kieran caught her before she fell. Around them, the battle quieted, wolves and hunters frozen. He looked down at her, blood mixing with rain. You shouldn't have done that, he whispered. I couldn't let you die, she said weakly. Not for me. He brushed her cheek with his thumb, voice breaking. I was supposed to protect you, not make you bleed for me. The silence didn't last. A final shot cracked through the air, one that Kieran didn't see coming. Aria did. No, she screamed, shoving him aside. Pain ripped through her shoulder as silver tore into her flesh. The bomb screamed to life, both of them collapsing. Kieran caught her before she hit the ground, his eyes burning brighter than ever. Stay with me, he said, voice shaking for the first time. Don't you dare close your eyes. I'm fine, she whispered, but the lie trembled on her lips. Smoke, fire, silver, all blurred around them. Kieran looked up at the last hunter standing, and for the first time, he didn't hold back. His roar shook the night, the kind of sound that didn't belong to this world. The hunter dropped his gun, terror flooding his face, but it was too late. Kieran moved faster than lightning. One strike, one breath, and it was over. Then he was back at Aria's side, cradling her like glass. Why would you do that? He whispered. Her bloodied hand brushed his cheek. because you would have done the same. And as darkness took her, he realized it wasn't the battle he feared losing, it was her.
Rain fell like ash on the smoking ruins of the courtyard. Wolves dragged the bodies of hunters into the mud, their victory tasting like sorrow. Kieran knelt beside Aria, his hands slick with her blood. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow. The silver bullet had passed clean through her shoulder, but the burn wouldn't stop. Silver poisoned anything it touched, and humans didn't survive it. "Lucian!" Kieran shouted. The beta appeared, limping, blood streaking his temple. "Get me the serum." "There is no serum for silver," Lucian said, voice breaking. "Not for her kind." Kieran's jaw clenched. "Then we make one." He lifted her into his arms, her body cold against his warmth. The wolves watched their alpha, this god of war, carrying a fragile, bleeding human through fire like she was the only thing left that mattered. Inside the mansion, he laid her on his bed, trembling fingers brushing hair from her face. "You're not dying," he whispered. "Not after everything." Her eyelids fluttered. "You always say that," she murmured weakly. "You always sound like you believe it." Hours bled into one another. The doctor, a wolf healer, stood helpless at the doorway. "The silver's too deep," he said. "If you draw it out, she'll bleed out before it leaves her body." Kieran's voice was low, dangerous. "Then I'll take it." The doctor froze. "Alpha, that's forbidden. A transfer ritual?" "Do it," Kieran snarled. Lucian stepped forward. "If you take her wound, you'll carry her pain. You could lose control." Kieran's golden eyes glowed faintly. "Then let me lose it." He sat beside Aria, taking her hand, his thumb tracing the faint scar from her mark. "I told you, the bond doesn't forget, and neither do I." When the healer began the ritual, Kieran didn't flinch. The silver left her body in streams of light, crawling into his veins. Pain ripped through him, raw and searing, but he didn't let go. Aria gasped, eyes fluttering open, color returning to her face. "Kieran," she whispered, voice trembling. "What are you doing?" "Keeping my promise," he managed, before darkness pulled him under. When Kieran woke, the world was quiet. Too quiet. His veins burned, his skin fever-hot, but his first instinct was to look for her. Aria sat at his bedside, her arm wrapped in bandages, her eyes swollen from crying. "You shouldn't have done that," she said softly. "You shouldn't have either," he rasped. She reached out, her fingers brushing his cheek. "You saved me again." "No," he said, voice rough. "You saved me first." For a moment, the silence between them felt sacred, the bond humming faintly in the air. "I saw something when I was fading." "What did you see?" "A field of light, wolves made of fire, and a woman with silver eyes. She said the bond always comes with a price." Kieran's expression hardened. "The Moon Mother," he murmured. "She governs the balance between man and wolf." Aria frowned. "Then what price did I pay?" He turned his gaze away. "You didn't pay. I did." Lucian entered quietly, carrying a folder. "We have a bigger problem," he said. "The council is calling for your resignation as Alpha." Kieran's voice was calm, but the air darkened around him. "They can try." "They know about her," Lucian pressed. "They say you've broken the old laws, binding yourself to a human, using forbidden magic. They've issued a decree. Surrender her or lose the pack." Aria's blood ran cold. "You can't fight all of them." "Watch me," Kieran said, standing slowly. He winced, the silver still burning under his skin, but his eyes were steady.
This house, this city, they were built because I refused to kneel. I won't start now. Lucien's voice softened. If you stand against them, you'll start a war. Kieran's lips curved in a bitter smile. Then maybe it's time they remembered what war with me looks like. Aria grabbed his arm. Stop, she said. Don't lose yourself for me. He looked down at her, pain flickering in his gaze. It's too late. You're already part of me. That night, when the moon rose, Kieran stood on the balcony overlooking the burning skyline. The city slept, unaware of the storm brewing in its shadows. Aria joined him quietly, wrapped in one of his coats. What happens now? She asked. He didn't answer at first. Every alpha dreams of peace, he said finally. But peace is just a word people use when they've forgotten how to fight. She studied him, realizing the weight he carried, the empire, the enemies, the guilt. You don't have to fight alone, she said softly. He turned, and for the first time, his composure cracked. I don't know how not to. She reached out, placing her hand over his heart. The mark on her palm glowed faintly through the fabric. Then I'll teach you, she whispered. You taught me how to survive. Let me teach you how to stay. He caught her hand, pressing it against his chest, his eyes closing as if her touch anchored him. I don't understand, Aria, he murmured. The bond doesn't make us stronger. It makes us vulnerable. Aria smiled faintly. Then maybe vulnerability is the only strength worth having. The wind howled softly, carrying the sense of silver and smoke across the balcony. Far below, wolves howled in mourning and warning alike, because the price of love had already been paid, and the war for it had just begun.
The night stretched endless over Vale Manor, a sky painted in ink and whispers. Aria couldn't sleep. The bond hummed under her skin like distant thunder, pulling her toward the window. The moon hung heavy above the forest, full, watching, alive. It wasn't just light, it was presence. She'd felt it before, faintly, when Kieran had been shot, when she'd called out and something ancient had answered. Tonight it felt closer, calling. She slipped out of bed, wrapped her coat around her shoulders, and walked barefoot through the silent halls. The air was cold, sharp with rain and memory. When she stepped outside, the forest greeted her with the hush of leaves and the pulse of the earth. You shouldn't be out here. Lucien's voice came from behind. He stood under the doorway, shadows carving his features. You'll wake him. I can't sleep, she said softly. It feels like the moon is waiting. His expression darkened. That's not the moon. That's the call. The call? She echoed. Lucien stepped closer, his tone low, reverent. Every alpha bond has a voice, a pull between the mortal and the divine. When one side is broken, the other is summoned to balance it. Aria frowned. I don't understand. He hesitated. You do. You just don't want to. He glanced at the mark glowing faintly on her palm. The silver in his veins isn't fading. The Moon Mother's magic kept you alive, but it poisoned him. The bond's energy is shifting. It's choosing one life to sustain both. Her heart went still. You mean me or him? Lucien nodded once. If the bond collapses, you both die. But if it stabilizes, one survives. The truth sliced through her like ice. She turned back toward the forest, the moon now brighter, larger, impossibly close. Does he know? Lucien said quietly, he suspects. He'd rather die than let you take the fall. Aria's jaw tightened. Then he doesn't get to choose.
The shrine stood deep within the forest, a circle of ancient stones bathed in pale light. Aria didn't know how she found it. The bond guided her steps like memory. The moment she entered the clearing, the air thickened with power. Wind howled and silver light poured down from the moon like a river. A voice whispered inside her mind, soft, female, eternal. You come to balance what should not exist. Aria dropped to her knees, breath trembling. Please, she whispered, save him. Would you trade your life for his? The voice asked. Yes, she said without hesitation. The wind roared louder, trees bowing like worshippers. He carries your heart, but you carry his soul. To heal one, the other must return what was borrowed. Aria pressed her hand to her chest. Then take it. Take whatever you need. The voice sighed, gentle, sorrowful. So be it. The mark on her palm ignited, flooding her veins with light. Back at the manor, Kieran awoke with a start. Pain exploded through his chest, silver veins burning under his skin. Aria, he gasped, staggering out of bed. The bond screamed through him like fire, pulling him toward the forest. Lucien tried to stop him. You can't go out there. She's in the shrine, Kieran roared, his voice half human, half wolf. He ran into the storm barefoot, lightning flashing above. The air shimmered with energy as he reached the clearing and saw her. Aria stood at the center of the stones, glowing like she was made of moonlight, her eyes distant, her expression peaceful. Aria, stop, he shouted. You'll die. She turned to him, smiling faintly. It's okay. You've done enough saving for both of us. No, he growled, stepping closer. You don't understand. If you die, the bond dies with you. Then let it. She reached out her hand, light spilling from her fingertips. You taught me that strength isn't about surviving. It's about choosing what's worth dying for. The moon's light flared blindingly, wrapping her in silver fire. Kieran lunged forward, but an invisible force threw him back. Aria, he roared. She closed her eyes, whispering a final prayer to the sky. The light pulsed once, then vanished. Silence fell. Kieran stumbled to his knees, clawing through the dirt, finding only her scarf where she had stood. No, 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 no. His voice broke, the sound raw, human. He pressed the scarf to his chest, trembling. The forest was still again, but the mark on his wrist glowed faintly. Her mark. And deep within his soul, a whisper echoed, soft as breath. I'm still with you. He looked up at the moon, its light fractured by tears in his eyes. You said strength was choosing what's worth dying for. Then I'll show you what's worth living for. The wind strode the trees gently, as though answering him, and somewhere beyond the veil of the night, the Moon Mother watched, silent, knowing, and waiting.
The forest had never been so silent. The moon's light had dimmed, leaving only the smell of rain and smoke. Kieran knelt where Aria had vanished, her scarf clutched in his hand, his breath shallow and shaking. The bond that once hummed in his chest was a hollow ache now, like a song cut short. She's gone, Lucien whispered from behind him, voice trembling. Kieran, we have to leave. The alpha didn't move. He stared at the ground, eyes blank. Go, he said quietly. You need to heal. Go! The word tore from his throat like thunder. Birds scattered. Lucien flinched but obeyed, retreating through the trees. Kieran stayed, still and broken. The rain began again, washing her footprints into mud.
He pressed his forehead against the scarf, his whisper barely audible. You were supposed to stay. His claws dug into the dirt, the beast inside clawing to be free. But this time, Kieran didn't fight it. The sound that came next wasn't human. It was the roar of a wolf king mourning his mate. By dawn, the forest had changed. Trees bent inward, their roots curling as though bowing to grief. Birds refused to sing. Wolves hid in their dens. When Lucien returned with a small group of guards, they found Kieran standing at the edge of the clearing, shirtless, eyes pure gold. His body trembled with restrained fury. Alpha, Lucien began. The council. The council can burn, Kieran said, his voice eerily calm. They brought this. They forced her into the moon's hands. His gaze swept the forest, jaw tight. Find Serene. Find anyone who touched this bond. I want them buried. One of the guards hesitated, but Alpha, she was chosen by the Moon Mother. It's not the council's doing. Kieran turned, and the look in his eyes made the man fall silent. Then I'll burn heaven too, he whispered. The power in his voice rippled through the air. The bond was fractured, but something else had taken root, something older, darker. The Alpha King of Vale was unraveling. Days passed, but time meant nothing. Kieran refused to eat, refused to sleep. He walked the halls like a ghost, the scarf always in his hand. The staff whispered behind doors. Some said he'd lost his mind. Others said he'd become something new. In the boardroom, executives waited nervously as he entered in silence. Sir, the stockholders. Cancel every meeting. Freeze operations. Sir? I said freeze everything. His voice cracked through the room like lightning. No one argued. After they left, Lucien remained. You can't do this, he said softly. You're destroying everything you built. I didn't build it for me. I built it to prove I wasn't a monster. But she saw me, and she stayed. Now she's gone. What's left to prove? He looked at the skyline, his reflection in the glass trembling with the flicker of gold beneath his skin. You think I'm falling apart. I'm not. I'm waking up. That night, thunder rolled across Vale City, but it wasn't weather. It was energy. Wolves in every district howled in unison, sensing the Alpha's rage rippled through the bloodlines. In the penthouse, lightning cracked against the windows as Kieran stood before a mirror, eyes glowing like wildfire. You took her. You took her, and you expect me to bow? His reflection moved differently for a moment, then smiled and said, She's never been yours. Kieran's hand slammed against the glass, shattering it into shards that floated mid-air. He fell to his knees, trembling. I'm losing her. No, a voice murmured in his head. It was hers. You're finding me. He gasped, clutching his chest. The bond flickered, weak, fragile, but alive. Somewhere, buried beneath the grief, her heartbeat pulsed once. Aria, he breathed, eyes widening. You're not gone. Kieran burst into Lucien's quarters, wild-eyed. She's alive. Alpha. I felt her. The bond. She's not dead. Lucien hesitated, then lowered his voice. Even if she is different, the council won't allow her to return. They'll see it as an abomination. Kieran's expression hardened. Then they'll see what an abomination can do. He pulled on his coat, grabbing the silver token she once carried. I don't care what she's become, I'll find her, even if I have to tear the veil between life and death. Lucien stepped in front of him. Kieran, if she's truly under the Moon Mother's hand, you can't watch me. His voice dropped to a growl, his aura darkening the air around him. They took my light, Lucien. Now I'll make the world remember what it means to fear the dark. The beta stared at him, realizing what was happening.
The Alpha King wasn't grieving anymore. He was transforming, and what emerged from his pain would change the fate of wolves forever.
The forest glowed under a pale, restless moon. The shrine lay silent, a scar of stone and ash where Aria had vanished. Kieran knelt before it, the scarf in his hands, his hair tangled by wind and rain. "You promised," he whispered to the night. "You said you'd stay." His breath trembled. For days he'd searched the mountains, the rivers, the ruins of the old lands, following the faint pulse of their broken bond. But tonight, the air felt different. The forest breathed. The moonlight thickened, painting the ground silver. The scent of lavender and rain, the scent that haunted him, swept through the clearing. Kieran froze. "No," he breathed, standing slowly. "That's not possible." A soft voice echoed through the wind. "You're late." He turned and saw her. Aria stood where the moonlight touched the earth, her dress white as dawn, her eyes shimmering with a faint golden light. She looked alive, but not the same. The mark on her palm burned brighter, threads of silver winding across her veins. "Aria," he whispered, taking a step forward. "How—" "The Moon Mother spared me," she said softly, "but she didn't send me back as I was." Her voice carried a strange resonance, human and something more. Kieran stopped a few feet away, afraid that if he moved, she'd vanish. "You died," he said, the words breaking. "I watched you disappear." "I didn't die," she replied gently. "I became part of the bond. The moon wouldn't take both of us, so it made me something in between." He stared, his throat tight. "You're one of us." "No," she said. "I'm neither." He closed the distance between them, every step heavy with disbelief and longing. "Do you feel it? The bond? It's different now." She nodded. "Stronger, wilder. It doesn't belong to fate anymore. It belongs to us." He reached out slowly, his fingers brushing her cheek. Her skin was warm but glowed faintly beneath his touch, like moonlight trapped under glass. "I searched for you," he said quietly. "I tore the world apart for a ghost. And now you found me," she whispered. "But you can't keep me the way you did before." "Why not?" His voice cracked. "Because I'm not yours to keep," she said. "The bond doesn't make us master and savior anymore. It makes us equals." His eyes flickered gold, then softened. "Then stand with me," he said. "Not beneath me, not behind me, with me." For a moment, the forest itself seemed to hold its breath. The wind stopped, the moon dimmed, and then, as if answering a silent prayer, the ground trembled. Wolves appeared at the edge of the clearing, eyes glowing, watching. Lucian stepped forward stunned. "By the gods, she's alive." "No," Aria said softly. "I'm reborn." The wolves shifted uneasily, sensing the power radiating from her. "She carries the moon's essence," one murmured. "A half-born, a divine echo." Kieran turned, voice firm. "She carries my bond, and she carries the future of our kind." The pack fell silent. For the first time in generations, they saw an alpha not ruling through fear, but through love. Aria took his hand, silver light wrapping around their fingers. The bond pulsed once, bright and whole. The moon above flared in answer. "It remembers us," she whispered. "Always did," he said. "We just forgot how to listen." That night the moon hung higher than ever before, full, unblinking, ancient. The forest sang with energy. Wolves howled, their voices blending into one long, mournful hymn that echoed for miles. Kieran and Aria stood at the center of it all, their hands still joined. "What happens now?" "Now," he said softly, We rebuild what they broke. She smiled faintly. And the council? His eyes gleamed gold. They'll either kneel or fall. Aria looked toward the sky, her hair shimmering under silver light. The moon remembers, she whispered again. And this time, it remembers us both. He pulled her closer, forehead against hers. The wind swirled around them, lifting the ashes of the shrine into the air like stars. And when dawn finally broke, Vale's wolves would wake to a new world, one led not by fear, but by a bond the moon itself had blessed.
The days that followed were anything but peaceful. Word of Aria's return spread like wildfire. To the wolves, she was a miracle. To the council, she was a threat that defied death and destiny. In Vale City, the streets whispered her name. Some called her the moon's chosen, others, the alpha's curse. But to Kieran, she was neither. She was his reason to keep fighting. They stood on the balcony of Vale Manor as the sun dipped below the skyline, painting gold over glass towers. They're gathering forces, Lucian reported, tension lacing his voice. The council has declared you both outlaws. They're calling for your capture before the next moon. Kieran's gaze never left the horizon. Then they'll have to cross a kingdom of wolves to reach us. Aria placed a hand on his arm, her voice calm but firm. They won't stop, Kieran. Not until one of us falls. He turned to her, eyes softening. Then we make sure it's not us. Preparations began that night. The halls of Vale filled with warriors, strategists, and messengers. The old banners of blood and war were burned, replaced with one new sigil, the crescent and flame, entwined. Aria walked among the people, her presence quiet but powerful. Wherever she passed, wolves bowed, not out of fear, but reverence. They see hope in you, Lucian said, watching her from afar. Or they see a reason to fight, she replied. Hope and war are the same coin. At the courtyard, Kieran trained with the pack, every movement sharp and lethal. When Aria approached, he paused, sweat streaking his face. You don't have to fight, she said softly. You've already done enough. He smirked. You think a king can't watch his queen go to war without him? You're not my king, she teased. And you're not my subject, he countered, stepping closer. The air between them crackled. For the first time since her return, she laughed. Light and unguarded. Fine, she said. Then we fight as equals. Always, he said. That night the sky burned red, the sign of the blood moon approaching. Wolves gathered across Vale's borders, thousands strong, their howls rising in defiance. From the northern mountains the council's armies descended, armored, silver-forged, their banners of purity glinting like knives. Kieran stood atop the cliff, his cloak whipping in the wind. They come with faith, Lucian said grimly. And we come with fury, Kieran replied. Behind him, Aria approached, her white cloak glowing faintly under moonlight. When this ends, no one wins unless we change what comes after. Then we'll change it, he said. She smiled faintly. You talk like it's that easy. Nothing worth saving ever is. He took her hand, his thumb brushing over her glowing mark. The moon gave you back to me for a reason, Aria. Maybe it wasn't love. It was to remind us both that love is reason. The first horn sounded. Below, the war had begun. The battle raged like fire over water. Silver clashed with shadow. Arrows rained from the cliffs as wolves tore through ranks of soldiers. Aria moved like light itself, her hands channeling the moonfire that danced between her fingers. Every wave of her power burned through armor, yet she wept as she fought. We shouldn't have to kill to prove we belong, she whispered through tears. Kieran fought beside her, his claws and blade painting arcs of vengeance through the field. We fight so the next ones won't have to, he said, hoarse. Lightning split the sky, revealing the High Counselor himself, a man cloaked in silver armor, his eyes hollow as mirrors. Abomination, you defy the sacred order. The order died with your mercy, Kieran spat. The two clashed, their powers shaking the earth. Every strike was thunder. Every roar is a prayer. But while Kieran battled the counselor, an archer hidden in the smoke took aim at Aria. The arrow flew fast, tipped with silver blessed under a holy moon. Kieran turned too late. Aria, he shouted. The impact struck her shoulder, the light in her eyes flickering. She stumbled, fire spilling from her palm. No! He caught her before she fell, rage and terror tearing through him. Stay with me, he begged. She smiled weakly, her blood glowing faintly like molten silver. It's not the end, she whispered. It's never the end for us. The High Counselor raised his sword for the final blow. But before he could strike, Aria's power surged outward in a blinding wave. The battlefield froze. Every soldier, every wolf, every breath hung still in time. Her voice echoed through the silence, soft yet commanding. No more chains, no more kings, no more fear. The silver light consumed the sky, washing everything clean. When it faded, the counselor was gone. The soldiers fled, and in the center of the ruined field stood the Alpha and his queen, hand in hand, unbroken, as dawn broke red and gold across a reborn world.
The war ended, not with cheers, but with silence. Smoke curled into the morning light, rising from the ashes of a battlefield that had once been soaked in silver and blood. Wolves wandered among the ruins, helping the wounded, friend and foe alike. The world had changed overnight. The council was gone, its armies scattered, its power dissolved like frost in sunlight. Kieran knelt beside Aria where the dawn touched her face, his hand pressed gently over her wound. Her eyes fluttered open, catching the first rays of morning. "Did we win?" she asked, her voice faint but steady. He smiled, his thumb brushing her cheek. "We didn't win," he said softly. "We ended it." She smiled weakly, her breath trembling. "Good. I'm tired of fighting." Kieran's heart clenched. "Then rest," he whispered. "I'll keep watch." But Aria shook her head. Not rest, rebuild. Her hand found his, and though her strength was fading, her resolve burned brighter than the rising sun. Days passed. The wolves returned to Vale, carrying both victory and grief. The city that once glittered with cold wealth now echoed with hope. Towers once built for power were torn down to make room for homes, gardens, and open skies. Kieran walked the rebuilt streets, not as a CEO, not as an alpha, but as a man who had lost and learned. The people greeted him not with fear, but gratitude. Children ran past him laughing, their small hands reaching out to touch his cloak. "The Alpha King!" they shouted. He smiled faintly, correcting them gently. No kings anymore. On the balcony of Vale Manor, Aria stood overlooking the city, her arms still bandaged, but her spirit unbroken. "You've changed everything," she said as he joined her. "No," he said. "We did." She leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Do you think they'll remember us?" "Maybe," he said, "but I'd rather they remember what came after." That night, beneath the calm moon, a new ceremony was held. Wolves and humans gathered in the great square, no longer divided by blood or birthright. Aria stepped forward, dressed in white and silver, her voice carrying through the air like a prayer. For too long, the moonlight was used to rule. Tonight, we use it to heal. She raised her hand, and the mark on her palm glowed softly. One by one, wolves approached, pressing their hands or paws against the symbol, forming a chain of light. Kieran joined her, his mark glowing faintly against hers. Together, they spoke the words that would define a new age. By the bond of moon and flame, we rise not as rulers, but as one. The light spread through the crowd, touching every soul, uniting them in warmth and peace. When the glow faded, no one cheered. They simply breathed, free, unafraid, and finally whole. Later, in the quiet after the gathering, Kieran and Aria walked through the forest where they had first met. The moonlight filtered through the branches, soft and familiar. "Do you remember that night?" she asked, smiling faintly. "You thought I was a thief." He chuckled. "You were stealing herbs from my property." "To save a stranger," she reminded him. "And I didn't expect that stranger to be a wolf," he offered. "A king," she corrected. He smiled, his gaze gentle. "And I didn't expect the girl who saved me to be the one who'd saved the world." She looked up at the stars, her voice softer now. "Funny how fate works." "No," he said, brushing his thumb along her hand. "Fate didn't do this. You did." They stopped at the clearing where the moon shone brightest. "So, what now?" she whispered. He smiled. "Now, we live." Years later, legends will tell of the kind girl who saved a stranger, not knowing he was the Alpha King. They would speak of how love broke curses, how fire healed wolves, and how two souls rebuilt a world that had forgotten how to love. Some said they vanished into the mountains, living in peace where no crown could find them. Others said the moon took them both, turning their spirits into stars that still guided lost wolves home. But in truth, they never laughed. For every full moon that rose over Vale, the people swore they could see them. Two figures standing hand in hand beneath the silver light. The wolf and his queen, the alpha and the flame. And when the night grew quiet and the wind whispered through the trees, their story lingered in the air. A reminder that even the coldest hearts can heal, and that sometimes saving someone else is how you save yourself.